Oh, shit.
Be my guest.
Good. Then I'll jump right in.
Make sure you can swim.
What we'd like is if you could diagram on the light pad.
I take it my calculations help explain the perturbations you've been seeing in the rotation pattern of your binary star.
How could you know this?
At a crowded train station in New York City, while a homeless man named Freddie begs passers-by for spare change, his attention is suddenly drawn to a mysterious stranger dressed entirely in black and wearing dark glasses. Unlike the restless crowd constantly rushing past one another, the man stands perfectly still in the middle of the station, quietly observing the world around him with utter fascination, as if everything he sees is completely new to him. Perplexed by the man's unusual demeanor, Freddie continues watching him closely. Then, moments later, chaos erupts on the other side as a couple of thieves rob an old woman, violently shove her to the ground, and disappear into the crowd. Seeing this, the man reacts immediately and rushes towards the shaken old woman, gently helping her back to her feet and trying to comfort her. However, police officers arrive on the scene soon after, and seeing as the strange man is the only one next to the distressed old lady who can barely speak up, they assume he's involved in the incident and order him to step aside, and despite Freddie's best attempts to explain the matter, begin questioning him. Yet to Freddie's surprise, the man calmly addresses the police, totally unbothered by the whole ordeal or the implication it carries.
Are you traveling somewhere?
I have arrived. My travels are over for the time being.
Baffled by their interaction with the man, the police escort him to the squad car and proceed to haul the smiling strange man away.
See this fella come out of a gate?
Didn't come from no gate.
As the strange man is driven away, he curiously looks through the window as if intently studying everything he sees with the same fascination. A month later, in the morning, at the Manhattan Psychiatric Institute, the chief of psychiatry, Dr. Mark Powell, speaks to one of his patients named Ernie.
I want you to start taking your medication again. It'll help you sleep, and you need to sleep, Ernie.
Later, Dr. Mark is informed about the arrival of a new patient. The strange man, who has been referred to him, leaves his office to find out more about the case, sees the man, becomes perplexed by his appearance, and stops to look at him for a few moments.
At 300 milligrams a day, and he was unresponsive.
The doctor is extremely baffled by what he heard and wonders how anyone could be unresponsive to such high doses of Thorazine. He then returns to his office and prepares to meet the strange man for himself. A few minutes later, the man is escorted by an orderly who assures the doctor that, though strange and ominous looking, the man is very calm and friendly and ushers him inside.
I'd like to begin by asking you if you know why you're here.
As the session continues, the unsettling calmness and certainty of the man make it hard for the doctor to dismiss his accounts as delusions of a mentally unstable man, leaving him baffled.
I'm not from your solar system.
I'm curious, how did you get to Earth?
It's a matter of harnessing the energy of light.
After the session, Prot is escorted to the rec room, where the rest of the patients spend their afternoons. And unlike most newcomers who arrive frightened or hostile, Prot calmly takes a seat and starts writing in his notebook. Then, having heard about him and his peculiar origins, a curious patient named Howie shyly talks to him.
I am from K-Pax. K-Pax is bigger than your planet.
That evening, still thinking about the curious case of Prot, Dr. Mark returns home to his wife Rachel and his two young daughters, Natalie and Gabby, who excitedly greet him. Then, during dinner, while Rachel talks about their upcoming vacation plans and the doctor absent-mindedly nods to everything, she notices how distracted her husband is and becomes upset, feeling like the doctor's only priority is his work. The next morning, still troubled by Prot's case and hoping to get some valuable insight, Dr. Mark gathers his colleagues and plays them recordings from Prot's session.
I aged about 7 getting here, traveling at 6 multiples of C.
After listening to the incredible recording intently, the doctors discuss the case at length.
How about getting to know him first?
In the meantime, we have 10 new transfers to take care of.
Later, Dr. Mark prepares himself for his meeting with Prot in his office, but is surprised once again to see Prot eat an unpeeled banana while admiring Earth's produce. After taking some time to collect himself, the doctor starts the session.
K-Paxians have babies.
Oh, yes, much like on Earth.
Then, Suddenly, as though remembering something, Prot takes a notebook out of his pocket and starts writing in it.
Yes, it's our custom to compile descriptions of the various places and people we encounter throughout the galaxy.
After his session, Prot joins the rest of the patients in the rec room, greeting each one by name and exchanging pleasantries with surprising familiarity despite his short stay at the Institute. Then, chaos ensues from the far end, as a troubled patient named Doris once again refuses to leave her room and angrily throws some food at the orderly, who was kindly trying to convince her otherwise. Curious to find out what caused Doris to explode in anger, Prot heads to the room and gets there just as the annoyed orderly walks away, muttering obscenities to himself, and approaches Doris.
Good morning, Mrs. Archer.
Well, I wasn't expecting any gentlemen callers.
Elsewhere, just when Dr. Mark believes the case couldn't become any more difficult to explain, he gets some of Prot's results, which leave him more baffled than ever and force him to question everything.
He can detect light at a wavelength of up to 300 to 400 angstroms.
Later, as his secretary, Joyce watches curiously, the doctor closes every curtain in his office for the patient's session and waits for the unique man, determined to challenge his impossible claims. A few minutes later, Prot arrives, and completely unaware of the chaos and confusion he's causing, calmly walks in, complimenting and chit-chatting with Joyce.
Well, Prot, I was hoping you'd tell me more about home.
You are not really listening to what I'm saying to you, are you? Even your Buddha and your Christ had quite a different vision, but nobody's paid much attention to them, not even the Buddhists or the Christians.
Ouch. Speechless, Dr. Mark, who until now thought he had seen everything in his long years of practice, remains seated in his chair, long after Prot leaves the office, failing to make sense of Prot, processing and reflecting on everything he had said, and struggling to decide whether to believe the fantastical stories he so convincingly shares, or just take them as the marker for the severity of the man's illness. And if Prot is indeed ill, the doctor wonders what kind of trauma could have driven the man beneath to retreat to such an elaborate reality, just to survive and go on. A couple of days later, the Powells spend time with Mark's sister Abby and her family. But even surrounded by relatives, laughter, and the warmth of family life, Mark remains emotionally distant, mentally drifting back to Prot's words and strange behavior until Rachel finally forces him to set his thoughts aside and join the rest of the family for lunch.
We stopped by to see Michael.
Oh, that was nice of you, Seth.
It was his birthday.
Then, hoping to change the subject from his troubled, complicated personal relationship with his estranged son to what he believes is a more pressing matter, Dr. Mark approaches Abby's astrophysicist husband, Dr. Stephen.
Seems to know quite a bit about your field. He's the most convincing delusional I've ever come across.
I can give you a whole list of questions to ask your fellow.
Wonderful.
Having made some plan to handle Prot's case, the doctor feels somewhat relieved and spends the rest of the afternoon with his family. The peace doesn't last long, however, as the doctor is called to see Howie later and rushes to the institution.
He's just sitting there.
Someone change his medication? Are you looking for something?
Bluebird. Prot told me to find the bluebird of happiness.
Before the doctor can react to this unexpected information, which he fears may have dire consequences, his attention is suddenly drawn to the courtyard, where he sees Prot speaking to Ernie, whom he is convinced to go outside for the first time since his admission.
It's one thing to take an interest in your fellow patients. It's quite another to make them think that you can cure them.
Oh, by the way, here are the answers to the questions you asked me.
Eager to get to the bottom of everything, the doctor immediately sends Prot's answers to Dr. Steve and patiently waits to hear his feedback, hoping it will clarify everything.
Your patient indicates his planet, K-Pax. Nobody knows much about the possibility of planets in this star system yet, but there's one or two around here who'd sure like to meet this fellow of yours.
The call leaves Dr. Mark with more questions than answers. How could this man possess such knowledge of the universe, which only a few great minds know? For the next few days, even at home, Dr. Mark spends most of his time studying. One evening, at home, while the doctor is completely absorbed in the case, he hears the sound of the piano, looks up, and sees Rachel teaching his daughter how to play the piano. Hence, he walks towards them. He shuts the door and returns to the table, completely breaking her heart and forcing her to question the status of their marriage. However, shutting himself in doesn't help the desperate doctor at all, and he continues to ruminate over the case for hours on end until he suddenly comes up with an idea to introduce Prot to Dr. Stephen and his colleagues, believing they will surely find a way to disprove his claims. Hence, that night, the doctor rushes to the Institute, gets a cab, and proceeds to take Prot out to the planetarium at the Rose Center for Earth and Space. Prot joins the doctor without questioning their destination, and on the way there, he looks out the window with utter enchantment, completely absorbed in the city, and to the doctor's amusement stares at a balloon, as if it's the most exciting thing he has ever seen. After a few minutes of driving, they arrive at the center, and Prot is introduced to Dr. Stephen and his colleagues. But instead of being intimidated by the brilliant minds preparing to question him, Prot calmly greets them, and even makes light observations of the human species, which the doctors take as a joke and compliment him on his sense of humor.
How many doctors are there on this planet?
Let's start with this idea of light travel, shall we?
Prot looks at Dr. Mark, silently asking for permission, and once he makes sure the doctor's on board, he starts his demonstration.
Stephen, could you input that?
Already on it.
Stunned, Dr. Stephen quickly puts in the numbers to verify the accuracy. Utterly flabbergasted, the doctors stare at the result, unable to comprehend how Prot could have figured it out, and after minutes of sheer silence, they muster their courage to speak to him.
How could you know this?
Every K-Paxian knows this, just as every child on Earth knows that your planet revolves around your sun.
Afterwards, as the astonished doctors proceed to leave, Dr. Mark approaches Dr. Stephen.
I don't know what I believe, Mark, but I know what I saw.
Realizing that his plan to get to the bottom of everything has backfired epically, Dr. Mark becomes frustrated, unable to figure out how to proceed. A few days later, at the institution, hoping to complete his first task, Howie faithfully sits by the window and patiently waits to see a bluebird. Then, after hours of waiting, he finally sees it, bursts with excitement, and starts running around hysterically telling everyone. Within a few minutes, as if the bluebird was a sign of rare hope for those trapped within the despairing walls of the institution, most of the patients ran to the windows to see it, while the rest just burst into celebrations and joined in. Soon, the joyous frenzy spreads throughout the institution, and the doctors rush to the rec room to find out what's going on.
What the hell is going on here? Just a blue jay.
A blue jay.
To the surprise of everyone, hoping to see the source of the unprecedented joy, even Doris leaves her room and interacts with her fellow patients, which Dr. Mark makes note of. Then, as the doctor, who seems somewhat amused by the ordeal, inspects the room, taking in the joy on every patient's face, he sees Prot approaching the excited Howie and telling him something, which the doctor can't make out from a distance, and wonders what it could be. That night, while Prot writes in his room, Bess, who's kept to herself without uttering a single word since she arrived at the institution years ago, approaches him.
You're the bluebird.
The next morning, after greeting and checking on some of his fellow patients, Prot spends some time with Ernie until a patient named Sal approaches him.
I put up with the stink in this place for 10 years. I would like to go there, to your room.
A few days later, after speaking to many of the patients, who excitedly inform him that they are leaving with Prot to go back to K-Pax, a concerned Dr. Mark approaches Prot, out of fear that giving mentally unstable patients such unrealistic hope may have dire consequences.
When are you planning on?
I'm departing on July 27th.
Why?
More confused than ever, Dr. Mark spends the next few days reading and learning as much as he can about space, hoping he will get a better insight into Prot's claims. One night, while the doctor sleeps in his bed surrounded by books, he suddenly jolts up, shocking Rachel. To no avail. Without even noticing Rachel's efforts, Dr. Mark gets out of bed, as if suddenly realizing something, and runs to his home office, shocking her and the children. Then, Rachel rushes to the office to find out what's going on, and finds the doctor replaying and listening to records of Prot's session.
Some horrible trauma. I've got to get to him before that date.
Then, a couple of days later, hoping to see how Prot reacts in a normal family setting and believing it will bring something out of him, the doctor invites Prot to his home to celebrate the 4th of July with him and his family. On the day, Dr. Mark warns the children, who make fun of the unusual scenario, to be on their best behavior and anxiously awaits Prot's arrival. A few minutes later, Prot arrives with Joyce and Nurse Betty and their families. Prot calmly gets out of the car and, after taking in his surroundings, politely greets Rachel. However, moments later, without even finishing his conversation with Rachel, Prot is distracted by the dog, which doesn't like strangers, and starts barking aggressively. Without even finishing his sentence, Prot rushes to the dog, and as if communicating with it, attentively listens to its barks.
She says she doesn't like it when you hide her favorite tennis shoe, and she doesn't hear so well on her left side, so...
Then, while everyone tries to recover from their shock, Prot starts playing with the dog and having fun until the food is served. Prot joins the family at the table and calmly enjoys the fruits while bonding with the children. In the afternoon, while everyone relaxes and enjoys their time with Betty following him closely, Prot slowly goes into the house, where he closely inspects the family pictures, wondering what it would be like to have a family unit, and learns about Dr. Mark's estranged son, Michael.
It's Mark's son from his first marriage.
But the young man in the photograph, he's not here today.
Later, while Prot thanks the doctor for inviting him to spend the holiday with his family, Natalie asks him to push her on the swings and leads him there. Prot and Natalie have fun for a few minutes, playing together, until someone suddenly turns on the sprinklers, which completely freaks Prot out. As if trying to protect Natalie, Prot frantically holds on to the little girl, warning her to stay out of the water, which scares the life out of her. Natalie then starts screaming at the top of her lungs for help, and everyone rushes to help her and neutralize Prot, while Betty prepares to inject him with a sedative. Quickly noticing the catalyst for the chaos, Dr. Mark orders them to turn off the sprinklers, which seems to do the trick, and instantly calm Prot down. Seconds later, seemingly oblivious to the chaos and panic, and to the bewilderment of the men, Prot calmly gets up and walks off to get some pie. The next morning, Dr. Mark discusses the events with his colleague, Dr. Claudia.
When he was going after Natalie, he wasn't trying to harm her, he was trying to protect her.
Do you have any idea how risky it is to regress a patient like this one?
However, later, Dr. Mark searches for Prot to tell him his plans, but is troubled to learn that he's nowhere to be found.
He went up north for a few days.
He had a few countries left to visit before he could finish his report.
Despite doubting the claim, the alarmed doctor informs Dr. Claudia of the developments.
I'm gonna have a great time explaining this to the state board because they all think they're going off to K-Pax.
Claudia.
Find him.
And despite continuing their frantic search, Prot remains missing. One evening, Dr. Mark stays late at his office and spends the night there. The next morning, the doctor wakes up, and as he walks around his office trying to decide how to proceed, he's shocked to see Prot sitting in a tree in the garden, and he rushes to speak to him.
Cut the crap. We've been looking for you for 3 days. And don't give me this beam of light shit because I don't buy it.
Are you sure that's what you believe, Doc? After considering the alternative for a brief moment, Prot reluctantly agrees to give hypnosis a chance and follows the doctor inside. There, after all the preparations are done, the doctor proceeds to put Prot under.
You are in a relaxed state of hypnosis now.
Once Prot is fully under, Dr. Mark begins his queries.
It's the father of a friend of mine. I want to go outside. Can I go outside?
The doctor then counts backwards and brings Prot out, and soon all of the troubling emotions on Prot's face disappear, and he calmly looks at the doctor as if silently wondering when the procedure will begin. Desperate to locate the area Prot was talking about, the doctor rushes to his office as soon as he finishes the session to speak to Joyce.
Find the locations of all the slaughterhouses operating in the United States.
Talk about a needle in a haystack. Despite knowing that the task is nearly impossible, Joyce jots down the doctor's desperate orders before rushing to get started. Meanwhile, in the rec room, everyone, including Doris, who is now fully integrated with the rest of the patients, discusses the journey back to K-Pax.
He can only take one of us with him. Why the hell would he take a stinker like you?
Then, Betty interrupts the futile discussion for the regular group therapy session and gathers everyone, but it quickly goes sideways.
Please state your reasons in a clear, legible hand and return them to me.
A few days later, Dr. Mark prepares for another hypnosis session and puts Prot under.
Problem is with the girlfriend?
She's pregnant. He could see it all coming right down the road, you know.
Seeing Prot's restlessness, Dr. Mark allows him to open his eyes and move around.
Tell me about Pete now.
He's a knocker. He's got a little place, but he's fixed it up nice.
Going through the taped sessions and everything in his notes, the doctor tries to narrow down the location from Prot's memory, which proves to be more difficult than he had anticipated. A couple of days later, Dr. Mark and Dr. Claudia are alerted to an emergency and rush to find out what's going on.
Good friend Howie, he just about strangled me to death.
Despite his sheer confusion, Dr. Mark is happy to see Ernie in such an upbeat and positive mood, congratulates him, and, hoping to get to the bottom of the madness, rushes to see the usually very timid Howie.
I cured him, didn't I? Prot says one more task and I'll be cured too.
More baffled than he's ever been in his long years of practice, Dr. Mark spends the next few days and nights at the office reflecting back on everything he knows about Prot, trying to wrap his head around the effects he's had on everyone around him, and vainly trying to make sense out of it. With only 3 days left until Prot's departure, Dr. Mark prepares another hypnosis and tries to find answers.
And where are you? What are you doing?
In the back of his house. He's trying to kill himself.
Suddenly, Prot remembers something, becomes emotional, and with a trembling voice continues his account.
You have to help him tell me what happened.
He doesn't want to talk about it, are you?
What is this man mourning? At the mention of the names, Prot suddenly gets up, violently attacks the doctor, and pushes him to the ground, but quickly lets him go and starts screaming in anguish. The doctor swiftly gets up, and knowing that Prot's not dangerous, holds off the orderlies and nurses who have barged in to neutralize Prot, and his heart breaks as he quietly watches his patient falling apart in front of him.
On the count of one, I'll snap my fingers and you'll wake up feeling refreshed.
Sympathizing with Prot and feeling Prot's agony, the doctor holds back his own emotions and quickly starts counting backwards, bringing him out of his misery. Prot calms down and, wondering why everyone is surrounding him, gets up. Dr. Mark picks up Prot's personal items sprawled on the floor during the ordeal. Later, on his way home, Dr. Mark suddenly remembers the pencil Prot had picked up earlier, sees the brand, and tracks the manufacturer to New Mexico. Upon further research with Joyce, the doctor narrows down the area to Guadalupe County. The duo then searches for local newspaper articles published on July 28, 1996, and finds a tragic report of a deadly attack on a woman named Sarah Porter and her young daughter Becky. According to the report, the bodies were later discovered by Sarah's husband, Robert Porter, who couldn't handle the grief and drowned himself in the nearby river. As the horrifying pieces finally begin falling into place, Dr. Mark realizes with growing horror that Prot may actually be Robert Porter himself, a broken man who retreated so deeply into another identity as his own mind could no longer survive reality. Desperate to learn more, the doctor immediately boards a flight to New Mexico. As soon as he arrives in Guadalupe County, Dr. Mark heads to the sheriff's office to ask about Robert. To his surprise, the sheriff quickly recognizes the name, hands him the file, and starts recounting one of the most horrifying tragedies the town had ever witnessed.
As I recall, he was a real smart fella. Damn shame what happened.
Then, the sheriff escorts Dr. Mark to the now abandoned Porter home and slowly walks him through the events of that terrible night. As the sheriff speaks, the doctor begins vividly imagining the tragedy in his mind, emotionally reconstructing the horror as though he were there on the night, witnessing it himself.
This Walker, he forced the two women into the house.
As they step out of the house, Dr. Mark sees the now broken down swing, remembering Prot pushing his own daughter at his house on the 4th of July gathering. Then, he finds the rusted sprinkler lying on the lawn and, imagining Robert turning it on to wash his bloody hands on that fateful night, now finally understands why it triggered him when he was at his house. The doctor remains frozen on the lawn for a few minutes, mentally going through the story and overwhelmed by Robert's unimaginable grief over brutally losing everyone he cared about overnight. As the doctor fights back his tears, the sheriff snaps him out of his reflection and leads him to the nearby river.
This river can be pretty treacherous. Even in July, it's got a hell of a current. It's probably where he jumped in.
That night, Dr. Mark returns home late at night, emotionally drained by everything he has learned, goes to his children's room and just sits there for hours, lovingly staring at them and trying to push back thoughts of ever losing them the way Robert had lost his family. Then, overcome with guilt at how distant he's become from his family, the doctor goes to the living room where his wife is sleeping on the couch and profusely apologizes to her for taking her for granted. Robert is changing the doctor's life for the better. A couple of days later, on July 26th, the patients come together to decorate the rec room and throw a farewell party for Prot. While everyone enjoys themselves, Howie sets up a table and prepares to accept the essays from everyone, in which they pour their hearts out explaining why they are the best candidates to join Prot on his journey back to K-Pax. Moments later, everyone, including an orderly, eagerly submits their essays. Meanwhile, while waiting in his office to speak to Prot, Dr. Mark studies Robert's high school yearbook. Then, after exchanging greetings, contrary to everything he believes, the doctor brings out a scotch and offers Prot a farewell drink, which he accepts.
Tell you the truth, K-Pax sounds like a beautiful place.
Dr. Mark argues with himself, trying to decide whether to confront Prot with what he knows or to just let him go in peace, and after a few indecisive moments, calls out to him.
That is Robert Porter.
Prot, that's you.
Now that you've found Robert, please take good care of him.
The doctor is left speechless and remains standing there trying to gather his thoughts. Meanwhile, Prot joins his party and enjoys the festivities and is happy to see everyone having fun.
There's extra points for the one who goes to sleep first.
As everyone rushes to their room, Bess discreetly puts her essay on Prot's table and leaves. Then, Once everyone leaves, Howie approaches Prot.
What's my last task?
To stay here.
Despite believing in Prot's methods completely, Howie is somewhat disappointed by his last task. He nods to show his agreement, hands Prot the essays, and walks away. Then, as Prot proceeds to leave, he finds Bess's essay and reads it with fascination. On the other side of the institution, Dr. Mark monitors everything and keeps a close eye on Prot.
Why don't you get a few hours of rest? He's not going anywhere.
When he returns to his office, the doctor is delighted to see Rachel waiting for him with some food. The couple eats dinner together, and the doctor falls asleep, hoping to wake in a couple of hours and continue his surveillance of Prot. That night, after Prot retires to his room, Betty and security guards monitor his every move on the camera while an orderly guards his door. While the orderlies place bets on the outcome of the night, Prot remains seated on his bed, clearly waiting for the beam of light to arrive. In the morning, Dr. Mark wakes up late, realizes that Prot's departure is only a few minutes away, and rushes to get to his room. Then, the doctor notices a beam of light, which he can't identify, abandons the elevator, and runs down the stairs as fast as he can. Just like Prot had said, at 5:51 a.m., the light beam shines in his room, disabling the cameras, and he quickly stands in the center, waiting to be transported. How can anyone explain this? A few minutes later, the breathless doctor reaches the room but is gutted to find it empty. Shocked out of his mind by what had transpired, the doctor searches the room, finds Robert lying on the floor under the bed, and with the help of the orderlies, carries him onto a gurney and wheels him out.
That's not Prot.
Definitely not Prot.
What do you mean? How can you tell? The patients all run around searching for Bess, and when she's nowhere to be found, they head to her room.
Good for you, homegirl.
Bess went to K-Pax.
However, despite Dr. Mark's best efforts and dedication, Robert struggles to show signs of improvement. Despite finding a seemingly fitting explanation to the mysterious case of Prot and attributing everything to Robert's unimaginable grief and trauma, Dr. Mark remains haunted by his wise words and often finds himself thinking about the unusual character, the effects he has had on his fellow patients, replaying the recordings of the sessions, and reflecting on their interaction. This coming Christmas, taking Prot's advice, the doctor invites Michael home and goes to the airport to pick him up.
You're looking great, Michael. Good. How was your trip?
Obviously warmed by his father's effort, Michael is relieved to finally start to build a relationship with him and embraces him. The duo then drives to the Powell home to celebrate the holiday. The Powells owe Prot for their reunion. Unfortunately, despite everyone who has come into Prot's life doing extraordinarily better and going off to reclaim their life, Robert, now alone, remains a prisoner of the tragedy that has changed his life forever and stays at the institution under the care of Dr. Mark, completely catatonic and unresponsive to his environment.